Okay. Welcome back to Married People's Business Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Tobert. I'm here with my beautiful co-host.
Hi, and thank you. I'm Shalise Tolbert.
Man, that voice sounds so good, man. We got to do this podcast, or can I like skip it and do some other things
You
with you?
know what? We have guests waiting to be introduced here. We already have them on screen for those who are viewing via
Okay.
YouTube. So.
Okay. Then I guess we got to talk about business. I can't play today, but maybe after the podcast we'll play. But welcome back to Married People's Business Podcast. And today we have a treat for you. We have the topic, don't sit on your assets, quote, assets. Don't sit on your assets. And we have a treat. We have some wonderful experts in the real estate field that's going to talk to you about building wealth in real estate. And we have Edwin
Edwin and
Edwin Watson and his wife Ivana Watson of Triple E Realty and Property Management. And let me tell you a little bit about why they're the experts and why they're going to give you some good information about not sitting on your assets. They are a full service property management company. They help property owners reach financial goals and are committed to finding the most qualified tenants, providing the highest return and protecting their investments for their real estate investors. They offer one-on-one coaching, and they also help folks like me and Shalise when we just were starting off trying to purchase our first home. They help give buying education to help people buy their first home. So welcome, Watsons. We're so happy that you gave us your time, and we're looking forward to you talking about your expertise in the real estate market. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
so let's do a little bit of background on you all first before we get into your actual business. Um, for our listeners and viewers, I've known Ivana since we were in elementary school, so I know she's from Gary. But
Gee,
let's
all right.
you know what? So we're gonna, but I'm gonna defer and start with her husband Edwin because I don't know much about you, Edwin. I know you married to my girl and y'all been together for a while, but where are you from?
I am originally from Pontiac, Michigan. So Pontiac, Michigan is where I'm from. We went from Pontiac, went to Purdue University, played a little football at Purdue University, and then after my football days were over, I settled here in Indianapolis with my beautiful wife.
All right. Look at that. I like that. That must be a Kappa thing where y'all be like beautiful
Of
wife.
course,
You
of
know.
course, of course. If we didn't have to do this podcast, I'm sure Edwin and me, we could hit you with that sweetheart song. But
Oh no, you know
we
what?
not gonna hit him with the sweetheart
Let's
song.
I am all good on that right now. While I appreciate it, it's quite all right. So you mentioned that you told us about your education and I heard you talk about being in the NFL, you played a little football. I heard a little something about that. So uh once you were done with football, anything else before you got into the real estate game?
Believe it or not, so I got a degree in business. So I was a supervisor, I was a production manager. Then I went into quality engineering. And then I was a quality executive for a few years at Rolls Royce for about 10 years.
Oh.
During, then we started purchasing real estate while we were actually working full time. And then eventually we both transitioned out of our corporate jobs into working for ourselves.
All right. I like to hear that. That Rolls Royce thing made my voice go high.
Well, you sound like you had a really great background in sports. I believe you played for the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL for a stint. And based off of what I could tell from your resume, and we'll get to Ivana's resume in a second, it sounds like you guys really, really take a lot of what you've learned over the years, not only in sports, but also in life, into your business, because your business is just booming. Triple E Realty and Property Management just seems like the firm to go to whenever you need any of your real estate needs met. And we're going to get into that. But Ivana, like we said, we've been knowing Ivana for a long time. She was always, Edwin, I don't know if she probably a little modest, but man, Ivana was always like this super smart girl. So did she ever tell you that, or does she try to stay low key?
No, she tells me all the time.
Well, Ivana, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know, you know what, like I said, I know you went to Butler University, which we're not going to hold that against you because I'm a Valparaiso
Oh
University
gosh.
crusader, so we're not going to hold the Butler thing against you. But your resume is impeccable. You have a degree in accounting. You work for a Fortune 500 company before taking the leap with your husband and starting this wonderful business. Why don't you tell the viewers and the listeners kind of your progression in life, and how did you come to be running one of the most successful real estate businesses in the area?
Yeah, so like Michael said, I did attend Butler University, graduated with a degree in accounting, and then worked for one of the largest CPA firms. We then merged, so we were Coopers and Lybrand, and we merged with Price Waterhouse. I stayed through the merger. After a couple years, I decided that I had a lot of accountant characteristics, but there was another side of me which was more out of the office type, more networking and sales. And then that's when I left to work for Robert Half, which is one of the largest accounting recruiting firms. And I was able to still use the skill set that I had in accounting and that experience to leverage business and, placement of accounting professionals. After that, I decided that I wanted to start a family. I was a director at the time, and I just needed to get out of the office, have a little bit more flexibility because I was working a lot. And a friend of mine kept trying to get me to get into pharmaceuticals sales, and I was kind of pushing back. But once I decided I was ready to get out of the office, that was the perfect transition for me to get into pharmaceutical sales, where I worked for Merck. And so each position that I held gave me the experience and skill sets that I'm currently using in the company today. And so with the accounting and, sales and things like that, earning bonuses and things, that really helped to finance us getting into real estate.
Wow. So I heard Edwin say, it sounded like basically that this was something that you all were doing on the side, to help either on a income level, get you some residual income, or just starting your investing, building your portfolio. So tell us, what's the start of that? How did that come about?
Well, originally, us getting into real estate, I'll say, I would definitely say it was me. I think we would agree. I'm a Monopoly guy. So I love playing Monopoly when I was a kid. And people around me, in my town, some of the African American folks, which was great for us, was starting to buy real estate. And I said one day I want to be in that position where we can buy real estate. So once we both were working, and the NFL was over, we both was working jobs. Then we looked for a way to kind of diversify our income a little bit. We're just paying too much taxes, right? We were had
Mm,
pretty good jobs, making a pretty good living, but we were paying too much in taxes. Reading books. Ivana loves this story because I tell it all the time. Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of the books I read, and real estate as far as investing and building wealth. So I came to her one day and said, "Hey, I think I want to start buying some real estate properties." And one thing led to another, and then it just took off from there. And went back and got a master's degree in business, and to make sure we had the tools to make sure we can run it one day. And one thing led to another, and here we are.
wow. And see, that's what I like, as we talk about our roles and our relationships, not just as business partners, but our roles as spouses. We trust our spouses when they come to us with a plan and with things like that. So, Ivana, how was that for you when he approached you with that?
Well, I mean, I was exposed to people who own real estate in college. People that attended Butler with me, their parents own real estate. And so they would have roommates. And that was my first, exposure to, oh, they're actually earning money by having roommates and renting out rooms. And that's, the parents were like, that's your extra money. So I thought that that would be a great idea. So it didn't take a lot of convincing for me to be, along with the program.
Well, I can tell you, both of you said some really key things there, and I want to touch first on what Edwin said, because Edwin sounds like an avid reader, and Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki, I believe, was the author of that book. Uh, for viewers and listeners, reading is extremely important if you're talking about investing in anything, whether it's real estate, a business. Books are really the future. Depending on what you read and how you read, it can really push you into a massive trajectory in terms of your business. So one of the things in Rich Dad Poor Dad that I want to touch on with both of you is it appeared that the concept of the book, for those of you who have not read it, is that the author Robert Kiyosaki had two dads. One was a dad that didn't have a lot of education, and his natural born father who had a lot of education. And the dad that didn't have a lot of education owned a lot of real estate and made a lot of investments and really leveraged his assets in order to make money for himself. Whereas his father, who had a lot of assets in terms of education and degrees, thought that money was evil and didn't necessarily leverage his assets to make money. So how for both of you, how did that reading that book and understanding the concepts that were laid out in Rich Dad Poor Dad, how does that influence you in terms of the information that you give to clients, and does that have anything to do with your passion as it relates to real estate?
I would say it has a lot to do with it. As far as, I get excited when I start talking about real estate. I really do. As far as our journey and how we got into it, those concepts of Rich Dad Poor Dad, that I use that when I mentor new investors, right? Um, I don't necessarily tell them to go off and read the book, even though I mention it as far as how our journey was. But I use those concepts as far as, you know, leveraging your equity in your primary house, and how to get involved in real estate, and understanding the benefits, right, and all the tax benefits and things that come with that. So um, the good ones listen. You can only tell them so much, right? So
Right.
a lot of times investors come in um, thinking they know until they make the first mistake,
Yep.
until you make those mistakes, and we're all gonna make them, right? So I'm not gonna sit here and say we didn't make mistakes along the way, but every mistake we make, we always look at it as a learning opportunity, right? So if you're not constantly learning from your actions and the actions of others, then you're really doing yourself a disservice.
So
I
let's
would,
talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Ivana.
I would also say another concept that I picked up was that, you can work hard, and we probably our parents and our grandparents are a testimony to this. You can work hard and you can be committed to these jobs and work 30 years and work all the overtime and things that are available to you to earn money. But if you're not using that money to invest it, you have to forever work that hard to keep it. And
Hmm.
so learning that if you make your money work for you, you don't have to work as hard and you don't have to work as long, and retirement can happen a lot sooner.
So that takes me to what I was going to ask then. When did what you guys were doing on the side for yourselves turn into your main business?
Um, you know, we are a bit different because it was a blessing, it's a true blessing, right? The type of jobs we both had. If I'm
Yeah,
monopolizing the
no, you're
conversation,
fine.
the type of jobs we both had, we had the flexibility. Now we worked hard at our jobs. No, don't get me wrong. We both were high performers, which is a blessing, and but it gave us the flexibility to build our business. And originally, we thought Ivana would be the first person to walk away. Um, a few years into it, it just made sense for her to go get a real estate license, because we were using our mentor to help us as an agent, and they were telling us, one of you guys got to go get a real estate license. It doesn't make any sense. You're buying investment properties for yourself. You should be making the money, right? You don't need us, right? to buy them for you. So then she went and got a license, and then my plan, every man, hey, you're gonna build a quit your job, and I'm gonna, keep working, and we're gonna build this. But then the business started growing so quickly from a property management side that it just made sense for me to walk away first. And we probably walked away from our jobs 2 or 3 years later than we should have,
Yeah.
right? Because we were losing more business by not being available.
Oh wow.
It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make good business sense, right? Although good jobs, but I mean, we were just losing so much business.
And I would say that we did that for 13 years. So that was one thing about us, and everything that we do, even when we bought our first home, we always believe in making good financial decisions and not extending or overextending ourselves financially. And as business owners, whatever business you own, a lot of times we jump all in. We got to get the business, we got to get the building, we got to get the furniture and all that stuff. And that's not necessary to own a business. So we worked for 13 years before we walked away. And it was at a point where when we walked away, we didn't miss a beat. Like we didn't miss a beat at all, like financially. And we were probably, like Edwin said, a couple years past due because what was happening was my eye would be twitching. Out, trying to do, and just trying to juggle. We had kids, just trying
Yeah.
to do it all and be great performers at work because that wasn't something that we took for granted. Um,
Right.
so, and we were blessed that we had the type of jobs where we earned bonuses to be able to take that extra money, not spend it. Like people would say, "Oh, what are you going to do with your bonus? What are you going to buy?" And we're like, "A house, another house."
Hey.
So good.
Well, that is a perfect segue into I am so thrilled. One of the wonderful things that I love about this podcast that if you'd have told us a year or so ago that we would be doing a podcast, I would have probably laughed at you. But I tell you, one of the things that I enjoy the most is meeting so many experts and cool people like you that know a lot more about the world than I do. So what I want to do is if you could take us through kind of some steps. If I was a person that walked into your office and you looked at me and said, man, you don't need to be sitting on your assets. I mean, you need to get out there and start accumulating assets. What is the first step? Because I think a lot of times what happens with people is they tend to become overwhelmed, and especially when you start talking about buying property, it's different. When you buy a Cadillac or a car, that's like people could do that all day. When you start talking about buying multi-units or buying a property management company or doing something like that can create generational wealth, sometimes people get a little hazy. So what is the first step? How much money do I need? What does my credit score have to be? And if you can debunk some of the myths out there that might keep somebody who's listening or watching this from leveraging assets on the way to wealth.
So, from a real estate perspective, what I would say is one, do one at a time. Again, don't overextend yourself. Don't buy a 4 or 5 unit property if you don't have the capital and cash flow available to make repairs, cover
Okay.
mortgages when tenants are not paying or when the property is vacant. And so that's what we did. We bought one property at a time. We did the renovations. We looked for properties at the time that needed minimal renovations, turns, carpet, some drywall, paint, just basic stuff. So we weren't overextending ourselves. Once we got that rented, we allowed the tenant to pay a couple months. Then we started looking for the next property. So you start small. What I would say is that your credit needs to be at least, a 640, a 680, especially
Dang.
if you're buying investment properties. So you have
That
some
extra.
flexibility when you're buying your first property to live in. You do get more flexibility. But when the lenders are looking at you from an investment, that's a little bit more of a risk. And people are more likely to pay the mortgage at the house that they live in and let the one go that they're using as an investment property. So I say buy your first home, live in that home, use the equity from that home to buy an investment property, or have your first home be your first investment property. You're familiar with it. And then, when you are ready to, upgrade to that next home, you then have that asset. That's probably the easiest, most comfortable way that people do it.
Okay, so people should view when they buy that first home that they're really making a real estate. They're in business at that point for themselves. Although I don't think, I want to make sure I captured that, because I think, I'm not going to even lie, when I know when Shalise and I bought our first home, I didn't think it was a business deal. But what I'm hearing you say is that first property can actually be a leverageable asset that could propel you down the line, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Absolutely. So when you buy that first house, right? So you buy your first house, all the benefits of that first house, it's an owner occupant house. One,
Okay.
you're gonna get a better interest rate on there. You're gonna get a better tax rate in Indiana. I can only speak to Indiana from a tax break perspective, being a 1% tax break rate versus a 2% as an investor tax rate. So with that, as you're living in that house and it's building equity, that's an asset that becomes an asset for you, right? So now that asset that you own per se, you're still making payments on it, but it's appreciated. Now you use that equity to pull that equity out to potentially buy your first real estate investment, or you can pull that equity out, rent it, and to move on to something else. So you can move into your house and then rent out your primary house as well.
And for
So,
individuals who
okay.
are thinking about starting a business, you then can leverage your home even more, because now you have write-offs, business write-offs that you can take. You can write off a portion of your mortgage because you're using a room in your house, your internet, your cell phone, all the paper you need for your printer, all of those different things that you might use on a personal basis. But now that you have a business, you then can write off because you are operating a business out of your home.
Okay. And that's a really key tip. I think people don't think about a lot. A lot of times you get people that are running businesses from their homes, and they don't even think about entity formation, which is
Yeah.
something that we advise, on in our business, and try to get them to understand that. So that makes me think about, okay, now we've got a couple of properties. Then at what point do you all suggest, getting in property management? How do you suggest someone transitions from, okay, I'm able to deal with these tenants and deal with these properties, to, okay, we need to get triple E in here and handle this for us?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I think from an investor standpoint, the key to success is building a team at the beginning. I wouldn't advise unless you're doing it full time. That's all you're doing. You're retired. I'm managing it. I'm going over to do the repairs myself. I'm doing all these things myself. If
Hmm.
you're not that person, you're not handy, and you don't have access to a variety of different people to do things for you, I would say get us at the beginning.
Okay.
Even from an investor standpoint, I would say the most successful investors are those who, as you mentioned, Michael, read. I don't want the whole paralysis through analysis. You don't have to overanalyze everything, but at least understand your why, right? So
Hmm.
when I sit down with investors, yeah, when they come to me and say, I want to be an investor, I want to know why. Why do you want to be an investor? I need to understand what your goals are, right? Because if you have unrealistic goals from the beginning, I want to stop that at the beginning, because
Yeah.
I need to manage your expectations. So for you to come in and say, "Oh, I want to make $1,000 a month," but you want to buy this house, but only rents for $1,000 a month, and you're going to have taxes and insurance and everything else, you're not gonna make that. So I need to understand, and we need to know what you want to do, and then and from there you get a realtor, a licensed realtor who knows the business, right? Who knows the area, who knows the type of rents that is going to be that's tied in with the right people from to be able to do a proper analysis, right? A
Mhm.
cap rate and those type of things, cash on cash, all the acronyms that you'll learn as a new investor to
Yeah.
say, how am I going to measure success of this investment? So
Mm.
I encourage all of my clients, and we both encourage our clients, build that team at the beginning, and then you start looking, right? As opposed to I've already bought something, and you come and say, help, it may be too late, right? It may be too late at that point. We can help you, but to meet your goals, we like to be involved at the beginning.
And all
Okay.
realtors are not created equal. There are amazing real estate agents out there that do not help investors. And so you want to have an agent that knows what a good investment looks like. They know how to run the numbers, they know what return on investment means, and how to make sure that what you're purchasing is going to give you that return. And it's not that it's, hard to do, but it can be challenging. And so having someone that has that expertise is going to work in your favor.
You don't you
Yeah.
don't
I,
want
go
you
ahead.
don't want a realtor that just wants the deal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the
So
last
Right.
thing you want.
Yeah, I saw a article in Forbes magazine. It was a 2021 article that talked about the benefits of investing in real estate, and it seems to me, just from a novice and an untrained eye in this area, it seems to me like there's a lot of different information about when is it good to invest in the real estate market and when it's not, but this article seems to suggest that there is never a bad time to invest in the real estate market because of all the great benefits that you get from being a real estate investor. So, could you share with our viewers and our listeners, somebody who's thinking about putting their toe in the water, the warm water or cold water, depending on how you see it, what should make them want to do this in terms of investing in real estate and to take the leap into property management or buying their first multi-unit or some of the other things that it sounds like Triple E specializes in?
I would say that what we know about property is that it appreciates. Typically, it appreciates. At
yes.
different times of the year, I mean, different years, it may appreciate more than normal. Like we just came out of a market where we saw that the appreciation was significantly higher because of the low interest rates from COVID. So even if you get into the market and say the interest rates are high, they don't stay high. And so if someone else is making that mortgage payment for you by paying rent, you may make a little less than what you would make if the interest rates were lower. But the key is you're still making money, and that return is much higher than those funds that are just sitting in the bank. I mean, we all
Mm.
know the bank is not giving away a lot of interest, and they're holding our money. And so why not put your money somewhere where the return is going to be a lot higher? And you're building this portfolio of properties that you can sell off when the market switches. And you can say, hey, I bought in a low end area and I want to sell this because it's doing amazing and it's appreciated. So now I can, take that money and reinvest it into, an A class or B class neighborhood.
Right. And could you tell us a little bit? You said the word appreciation, and I wasn't in the honors program
Here we
like
go.
Yvonne and
Talking about
Shalice. So
GT.
like I don't. I
Haters,
mean, you saying
man.
all these
Look,
fancy words like what
look.
appreciate. So when you say appreciation, what do you like? Are you talking about
Just
I appreciate you, or what I
look.
No.
appreciate? What are we talking about
So
here? Like,
I'm talking about
break this down for me.
the value of your asset over time. So what we do know, what's very relatable is we know when you buy a car, the minute you drive it off the lot, as a brand new, no miles on it, as soon as you drive it off the lot, that asset depreciates. The
All right,
value
I got
goes down. But with a property, with a home, the longer you keep it, the more your asset appreciates and the
Got you.
value increases. And so
All right.
that's the difference.
You know,
Okay.
these Calumet high school graduates, you know.
Yeah, I was just confused. I didn't know. That's why I bring people like this is why I bring the Watsons on so they can set me
Look,
straight. I'm sure it was somebody listening like appreciation. I don't know
well,
what that means.
and you're right.
Yeah.
But you always going in on a dig with the GT, man. I don't know why. If it wasn't for the GT, you wouldn't know us,
That is
man.
true. That is true.
Exactly.
So, but we talked about some of these steps in the background things that you all can teach, but tell everybody about Triple E Realty and Property Management.
You want me to go? Well, Triple E Realty, I'm gonna give you my whole little spiel. So we are a full service, two companies, full service real estate and property management company. So by real estate, we work with traditional buyers and sellers to help you find your first home to your dream home. So we can start you. We work with all different type of clients, right? So if you're just as green and you're a first time home buyer, we love you. We look forward to working with you. Or you're even a seasoned owner who you're looking for your second, third, or fourth house, right? Then we have a whole different side which is Triple E Property Management, where we work with investors. Investors that are actually looking for buy and hold type properties or fix and flip type properties. Just depends on the type of investor. By full service, we have a team internally where we do repairs and renovations. So we are truly a one-stop shop. So we can help you buy it, we can help you renovate it, we'll rent it out for you, we'll help you sell it down the road. So when you get with Triple E, you really don't have anywhere else to go. We handle everything for you.
And
I
something
like
that sets
that.
us apart is, from a property management perspective, is our team is going to go out on a quarterly basis to walk that property, make sure that that tenant is maintaining that asset so that
Mm,
once they move out, you're not hit with this big bill of, oh, the deposit doesn't cover it. If there's repairs that need to be made because there's damage that the tenant has caused or just wear and tear on the property, when people don't own the property, they're less likely to bring it up unless it's an inconvenience. But it could be something that could potentially diminish the value of the property if it's not addressed, at the right time.
okay. I like what Edwin said though. He basically said, "You come to us, you ain't got nowhere else to go. You ain't got no reason to go to nobody else. Come on, we got it all."
That's right. That's right. And how do you determine what asset to invest in? So if I come into your
Office.
office and I got like about
Oh,
$300-400.
you
Got
gonna
about
turn
three.
right back around.
I got $300-400. My credit score
Why you
like
talking like a pimp?
all right, I got a little cash, a little bit more than $300, and my credit score is healthy. We'll say it's healthy.
Yep.
Like what do you tell me in terms of I'm telling you I want to get into the game. I want to get into the real estate game. So what asset would you start me out on? Is there a starter kit for
You know
people
what?
like me, or what do I do?
And it truly is, right? So your available cash is going to be your entry, right? Depending upon that kind of determines your level of entry, right? So
Okay.
how much available cash do you have will determine in investing, we kind of go A, B, C, right? That's
All
how we
right.
Okay.
go B too. But so A, B, C type class properties. And now that's not saying anything to the location. It's more from a rent perspective, right? So a
Okay.
certain rent ranges put me in an A class type of area based on the rent means the values of the house are typically going to be a little bit more, right? So to buy that house, I may need a little bit more money. So depending upon what you bring to the table, what you have available, is how we're going to segment you from an investment standpoint, right? And so a good portfolio has a good mix, just like a good investment, good stocks, right? A 401k. You're going to have different type of investments. You may have a couple A's, you may have a couple B's, you may have a couple C's. But as that new investor coming in, you may come in and say, "Hey, I have $10,000. What can this do for me?" Right? So we'll look at that to see what can I buy you what can we help find you from a down payment perspective that this covers, and what's your cash reserve, right, to be able to maintain the product. So we kind of walk you through all of that, depending upon how much cash you have, and then if you're just not ready, then we'll put you on the path to try to get you there.
Oh, I like that.
Wow.
I like that because you're gonna help a brother out. That's what I like. That. So you just don't turn people around. Triple E. If you see promise in somebody, you will give them the resources, or at least direct them to where they can maybe get their credit score up, or where they could get their capital up, so that they can get into the real estate game and start making some money. That's about it?
Yeah, and that goes for not only for investors, that goes for home buyers as well, right? So we have a
Awesome.
ton of home buyers that come in. So we do seminars on debunking myths of buying properties and things like that, or just buying your first property. So a lot of times we have individuals who are looking to buy their first home, and they really don't understand how to buy a first home, right? So we mentor them and put them in positions and get them with the right type of lenders and credit repair specialists to guide them and get them ready. And it may be 6 months, right? It's all about planting that seed, as they say, right? And
Yeah.
that person that's looking today is going to be someone that's ready in the future.
Right.
Wow.
That is excellent.
Yeah, y'all really are. Hey, come to us and you
I
don't need
love
to
it.
go anywhere else. I
I
am
love it.
really, yes,
I
yes.
love it. I love it. I love it. And as married people doing what married people should be doing, is not only helping their families, but also being contributors to the community. And that's why we wanted to have you on the show. So
Yeah.
I need to know how to get this money though, y'all, the Watsons. Like, okay, so now I know I got my eye on a little piece of property in the small farm area, Gary. Okay, all right. That don't mean nothing to Edwin, but Edwin will find out once I send him down there to go scope this property out for me, right? So, okay, so the bank telling me, man, no, we not gonna give you no money. So, like, how do I get the if I don't necessarily have the liquid cash? How do you help people in terms of directing them to other funding sources, so that they could buy that piece of property that they know one day is going to appreciate, that fancy word that Ivana used earlier, that I know is going to appreciate in value later. So how should I talk to the bank to convince them that, hey, this property is going to pop, or that family member?
Mhm.
How do I get the money I need to be able to get into the real estate game?
So there's several different ways. You can save over time, tax returns, bonuses,
Mhm.
overtime. Just if you start living and making sure that you can pay everything on just the main job without the overtime and without, spending the tax return and just lump it away. What I will say is what is even more important than having money is having good credit. Because
Okay.
when you have good credit, the bank will lend to you. You just have to have good credit. There's different programs. So for an investor, there are programs out there where they won't really even look at how much cash you have. Now, you should have cash. Let me just say that. As an investor, it is the responsible thing to do to have at least 6 months of the mortgage payment saved. The banks like to see this too because if your tenant doesn't pay or if the property is vacant, you're not having to reach into your personal resources. So have at least 6 months set aside. But there are financing options out there where they look at just the asset and what this asset is expected to rent at. And based on that, they may lend you money. There are hard money lenders out there that are willing to lend you the money if the property appraises or has the potential to give the right return. Now, all of these non traditional programs or financing options do come at a higher interest rate. But if you're just needing that short term to get that first investment, once you've built up the cash, you can then refinance into a more attractive financial lending option. You could pool assets together with other people, go in and buy a property together. You are splitting the return, but it's a lower risk and you're not pulling solely on your cash, but the cash of others, and building an LLC to do that.
I would say that with that option, and I like that option too. I didn't used to like that option because we were firm believers in let's do it just she and I. But over time, I've seen that model work. What I mean by that is having other investors that are the key is having investors that are equally yoked with you financially.
Yeah.
So as you invest with others into investment properties, your return is going to be less. Your risk is also less.
Yeah.
So with that, you can. So maybe you save $20,000, but you're not ready to part with that, right? So you get 2 or 3 different investors together that are equally yoked with you. Now you only have to bring a third of that, right? So then now you can parlay that into more investments down the road, and now your group is building a portfolio together. And at the same time, if you don't need the cash right away, it's just you really establishing wealth through real estate. And that's a good way to do it.
All right. Now I'm invested. What do you guys do to help me protect these investments?
So wait a minute. You mean to tell me we got the small farm property?
Yeah, we got the small farm
Yes, we
property.
got the small farm property. Thank you, Triple E.
As you can see who Hollywood is over here. So
I'm sorry. What's your question, baby?
I feel like I need the court reporter to come back and read my question.
Read it
'cause
back.
you just
Read it back, please. Could you
No,
please
I
read the
was saying,
question
so
back?
we're invested now. So Triple E, we're working with y'all. We're invested now. Now, how do you help us protect these investments?
So from a protection standpoint, from a legal perspective, we are not legal special professionals. So we always refer our clients to, again, when I talked about building that team at the beginning, having the right real estate attorney is a part of your team. That's essential, right? To make sure that your financial advisor is putting you in the right position at the beginning, from that LLC formation,
Mm-hmm.
and from an insurance perspective, from a trust perspective, to make sure that your assets are protected. Now, from an investment perspective, Ivana kind of alluded to that, right? Within our core business model, we're constantly inspecting your investment to make sure that it's being protected and maintained. So that's kind of one of the things that kind of separates Triple E from other real estate property management companies, where we do things that others don't do. Well, others are starting to do it because they know that we do it, and they have to offer it because to be able to compete with us. So, as they say, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So, hopefully, that makes the more other companies do the same thing that we do, kind of makes Indianapolis continue to be an attractive place for investors.
And you
You
also
guys
want
are
to have insurance, a reliable insurance agent that's going to make sure that your property is insured. One mistake that people make is they get insurance based on the value of the home when they purchased it versus the insurance of what it's going to be worth once you do all those renovations. And it's not until that house burns down or you've got some significant damage that you realize your home is underinsured. Also, a tax accountant to give you that advice on whether to be an S corp or LLC, things like that, and how that's going to affect you from a tax perspective. That's another member of the team that you want to make sure you have on board. For us, when you are a part of the Triple E family, we have a real estate accountant that we use, a real estate attorney that we use to vet our leases and update them annually to make sure both sides are protected. Also to handle any evictions if we get to that point, or any lawsuits that may come of you having a property, someone fell, someone got bit by a dog, all those things. We have those resources in place for our clients.
Yeah, and so in that Forbes article, that 2021 Forbes article that I talked about earlier, one of the things, and I think Ivana kind of touched on this, is she mentioned taxes. So when you talk about protecting your assets and protecting the investment that you do have, are there any tax benefits that that you can share with our viewers and listeners for those that are in the real estate game already or that plan to go into the real estate game? Because I thought I read somewhere where you can write off some business losses, and I know I'm gonna throw it out there. This is a qualified. We're not giving tax
Disclaimer.
advice. So this is a disclaimer. So Triple E is not giving tax
We
advice.
are not.
We're not giving tax advice. We're just
Tolbert is not giving
yes,
tax
Tolbert
advice.
is not giving tax advice, but we're just talking as some married folks,
Some
talking
knowledgeable
about some
business
business,
people.
talking about married people's business. So what are some of the tax benefits that can maybe encourage folks to maybe jump into real estate
That you're aware of.
that you are aware of?
The tax benefits that I'm aware of course, the number one being the depreciation of the asset itself. So
All right.
once you purchase a home over the next 26 and a half years, you get to depreciate that asset itself. So that's an immediate tax benefit for you there. Although you claim the income, you also get to claim the expenses, right? The expenses can consist of any type of maintenance and repairs. There's also the interest and taxes and insurance that you pay on that property as well. So all those are taxable expenses that are beneficial. Although you do receive some income, typically our clients, from a tax perspective, by the time you write off enough, it helps diversify some of the other income you have from your 9 to 5. So now, while your asset is appreciating in value, you're getting to depreciate from a purchase perspective. So you're writing off here, but you're earning here for later on down the road. So you're essentially writing off and building wealth at the same time.
Right. You get to write off your property management fees, the interest. If you purchase with a mortgage, you're writing that off. So different things that you wouldn't be able to write off just because you own a home. It has to be written off because there's income associated with that. Now, what I would say is if you are financing these assets, it is a good idea not to write off everything to the point where you're not earning income, because remember, we're going to the bank saying, please allow us to borrow money. And they want to see that you're making money to be able to pay the mortgage. So as business owners, people like to just write off everything and show that they're not making any money in order to not have to pay taxes. But when you're asking a bank for money, you need to show income for the last 2 years. And having a 9 to 5 W-2 job is great because then that's your income. But when you're trying to borrow from a business perspective, you want your business to show income as well.
But we are not giving tax.
We are not.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. I'm telling you, this has been a lot of helpful information.
It has been. It has been. And one of the last things we want to talk to you about, because y'all done got the Talberts all excited, man. I think I'm gonna go buy me a couple houses.
I'm gonna buy.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
what
gonna
you gonna do.
put a couple houses on the
right.
books.
Go ahead,
But
Mike T.
but so you give all this information to folks, and I'm sure you've helped people be ultra successful. But is there ever any time where you've indicated to people that maybe they should scale back? So I guess my question, and the last thing I want to leave the viewers and the listeners with, because now that they've gotten all this great information, they're going to use it to get properties and start investing in real estate. When is there a time to scale back, or when is the time to buy more property? So if you can address both of those issues, because I hear that a lot, where people start selling off assets because the market is bad, or the old saying is, when you see blood in the streets, buy. That's an old Roman saying. So when exactly is it time to scale back? When is it time to buy more and invest more, based on your experience?
I would say, based on my experience, it's time to sell when you can no longer financially keep them up, right? And in a lot of cases where sometimes you can scale too fast, right? So although the banks are want to give you loans but you scale too fast and you over leverage yourself. Where
Mhm.
unfortunately, banks at some point, sometimes they give you more money than you need, and understanding again what your why is, and the clients that have typically sold are those who either they're over leveraged, meaning they bought too many houses and now they want to buy something personal, and their debt to income is just too high, right? So then they look to offload a few properties, or you get to the point where you've made the houses have appreciated so much where now it's time to cash out, right? You say, hey, I've made what I was looking to make, and now it's time to cash out. So if the house has appreciated, based on the value of the house today, what I can sell it for, if that's going to exceed what I can even make over the next 2 or 3 years, it may make sense to go ahead and sell it and get that lump sum, and then I can use those funds to do something else with. So it just depends on how the asset itself has appreciated over time, and making sure you don't over leverage yourself as you scale up when you start buying.
And I've had clients that sold because the market was good. And based on what they purchased the home for at this moment, it just made sense to to sell it because they were going to sell it for 3 or 4 times more than what they purchased it for. So that
Mhm.
gave them a lot of cash to be able to buy a different type of investment. Or say you bought a property, it was your first property, you bought it in a C class area, it's a C class property, it's older, and you're just like, hey, I just keep having to put money into this because the furnace was old, the roof was the original roof, we have the original water, and you're like, it's bleeding me. I'm going to sell this because it's not working and giving me the return that I'm looking for.
Okay. So it sounds like we've gotten so much information from you all. You are truly, I mean, today you've exhibited to me that you are truly the one-stop shop
Absolutely, man.
for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have in the future for Triple E? Some upcoming projects, expansions, things of that nature. Tell us about what's going on.
Helping the Tobers. Y'all gonna get us. Y'all gonna get us a
We
couple
have we
couple
have
houses, couple bricks. Get us a couple bricks.
Yes.
absolutely. So we have recently expanded to Anderson, Indiana. So we just expanded. So as we continue to go that way, we'll probably be hopefully in Fort Wayne. Is Fort Wayne next? Is that Muncie?
No, Muncie.
Muncie. So Fort Wayne, Muncie, we're headed that direction. Then
Okay.
we'll start working our way towards Lafayette, West Lafayette, of course. So as we go more north, our overall goal, we want to be the largest real estate and property management company in the state. Not just Indianapolis. We want to take over the state, right? We want to be able to have different hubs and different locations in different cities within the state of Indiana, and so hopefully in 10 years we'll be there. But one city at a time.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations on the recent expansion. And when two or more agree, come on,
Yeah.
we about to agree with y'all. Y'all already got that. It's
Yes,
already for
yes.
you.
We'll be praying for you. And those of you who are listening and watching this podcast, if you haven't met the Watsons, y'all need to, as Shaq would say, Google me. You need to Google them. You need to Google these people. You need to figure out how the Watsons can help you and how Triple E can really be a professional service provider to make you go to the next level. So on behalf of the Tolbert family and the Married People's Business podcast, the Watsons and Triple E family, I want to thank you for giving us your time and really dropping jewels on us today. And
Absolutely.
it's a Sunday, and I know you could be a million places in the world, and you were here with us and you're providing great information. So we want to thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate you all.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you for having us.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we
So
appreciate it. Go ahead. You
one
want to
one
close this
last
out?
thing. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can find out information about you.
That's right.
Sure. So our website is triple, TRIPLE, then the letter E, realty.com. And so reaching us there, filling out a contact form, we can help you. And it's going to ask you what is your need and whether it's buying, selling, investing. And then from that, you'll be put into a funnel where you will start getting all types of resources from us. You know, the 10 mistakes to avoid as a first time home buyer, as a seller, and as an investor. And, you know, we schedule a consultation, see where you are and how we can assist you.
All right. And then the social media tags.
So it's always Triple E Realty on Facebook, Instagram. We have both Facebook and Instagram Espanol. We do have multilingual agents on the team.
Right.
LinkedIn, Twitter, or it's X now. So we're on all social media platforms.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And speaking of social media platforms, Mrs. Tolbert, do you want to tell people where to find this podcast?
Married People's Business. YouTube, first of all, if you want to see us and see the lovely faces of the Watsons on
Yes.
this episode. And then if you got time to listen to us while you're driving, while you're at the gym, we are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and wherever you find your podcast streaming, you can find Married People's Business.
No doubt, no doubt. And if you like this podcast and you like the content that Married People's Business podcast gave you and that the Watsons gave you, please hit the subscribe button, like, share, and comment on this video, and make sure that everyone in your family or your friends get this wonderful information that the Watsons have given us. So that's Married People's Business podcast. We're out. Thank you very much.
God bless.
God bless you. Take care, guys. Thank you.